But if she's not ready to have an honest and open conversation about finances, are they ready to get married to each other?
Go grandma. I'm on grandma's side.
Grandma knows best, honestly.
Okay, that changes everything. Then scrap what I said earlier. Thanks for tuning into the show, Honey Hearts. I'm Sandra.
And I'm V.
Here we discuss stories that are sometimes heartwarming or heartbreaking. When it comes to the relationships with our loved ones, we never want money to get in the way. But let's face it, the topic of money and finances does come up and it could get a little awkward. In today's stories, we explore how to navigate these uncomfortable conversations when money comes into play.
Ooh.
First story of today. Am I the a-hole for not giving money back to girlfriend's family? Her grandma left me money to pay off my loans.
Okay, we're starting off hot. Okay.
Background. I, 28 male, have been dating my girlfriend, 26 female, about 2.5 years. Her family would probably be considered upper middle class, as in they have a nice house and her parents were able to pay full college tuition for their 3 kids with no loans. I was probably dead middle class and graduated my state university with about $40,000 in loans. Her grandma was a lovely woman who died with a decent amount of wealth. Last Christmas, the topic of student loans came up and I mentioned mine, saying I have just under $50,000 and was hoping the forgiveness would go through. She asked about my monthly payment, if I thought it was worth it and all that. In the last year, she sold her condo, moved into an assisted living facility, and redid her will. I was not aware, but when doing so, she slipped in $50,000 for me to pay off my loans. We always had fun conversations, but it was a big shock to me. But I'm super grateful about it. She died last month, and while the money hasn't hit the bank account yet, I should be getting it all relatively soon, and I plan on making one lump sum payment to be debt-free. This is life-changing for me. Well, this past week at Thanksgiving, her parents and siblings spent a lot of time telling me that it's not fair that I got so much when I wasn't officially part of the family. My girlfriend got an equal share as her siblings and her mom came down to about $60,000 each. So they got more, but not a ton more than me. A couple of her siblings are married, and they thought it was unfair collectively. My girlfriend and I got more than them or more than her parents. Throughout the 3 days at her parents' house, they spent lots of time urging me to give it back to be split up between the rest of them to be fair. My girlfriend is kind of caught in the middle and at first had my back, but now thinks I should just keep the peace. I really don't want to though. Am I the a-hole for just not giving it back and just clearing my debts with it?
I have some opinions about this.
Okay, so in today's story, OP's girlfriend has a grandma who so generously added him to her will. What did you think about that?
I mean, isn't that what wills are for? When I think of wills, I mean, of course the family can feel some sort of way, but at the end of the day, it's the grandma's will. I don't know. I think it's messed up that if anything, they're trying to pressure him into giving it up. And here's the question. If he gives it up, then what? Are they all going to split his $50,000 amongst themselves?
Yeah, so that is actually what they want him to do. They want him to give the money back to the family to be split up amongst the family because in their eyes, he's not officially part of the family.
See, but that's so weird because they're looking at it as a group. So they still, like, everyone else still gets more than him already by like $10,000 or something, right? But when it comes to comparison, they're saying, oh, OP and OP's girlfriend as a duo have more than some of the other couples. But I mean, how is that fair? The grandma is, out of the kindness of her heart, wants to help him out on that. It's in the will. I think grandma knows best here. I think I would be with grandma because it isn't fair for them to now be fighting over the $50,000, knowing how it seems like everyone else kind of in this family is a little bit more well off, to be fighting with him over essentially because he has that, less, like 10K less than they did. It just doesn't seem fair.
To me, whether or not he's part of the family does not matter. What matters is that the grandma thought of him as close enough, right, to add him to her will. I mean, it was her decision. You can add anyone to your will, anyone you want to your will. It doesn't matter. It could have been a neighbor. It could have been, another friend of hers that is not part of the family. I mean, and that's probably what she considered him as, as a friend.
If anything, I would hope that the girlfriend, like OP's girlfriend, would have stepped up and said something on his behalf. Because I think it's also wrong that her entire family's pressuring him now.
Yeah, I mean, he did say that she was caught in the middle, and I can see how, how that is difficult. I think at the end of the day, it's not their will and it's not their money. Yeah. It is the grandma's money and the grandma's will. So, I mean, why contest it?
Right.
And they all got something. Everybody got something.
Right. It's not even like she excluded everyone else from the family except him especially. If anything, it seems like he got the least amount.
Right?
Compared to everyone else. So the fact that everyone has so much, I guess, stake into the smallest bit of the pie that he was given, it just seems a little bit weird. I don't know. It comes off very greedy.
Oh, yeah. I wonder if it is greed because they are upper middle class. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if it's greed or just like a sense of, oh, you're not part of the family.
Yeah, you're not one of us.
Yeah, you're not one of us. Maybe it's like that group mentality, and maybe they just didn't want to acknowledge it. But at the end of the day, it's not their money and not their will. So
I wonder if they would have reacted differently if OP also came from a well-off family.
I wonder if they might think of him, I don't know, like a gold digger. I wonder if that might have came up in their minds.
Because I feel like when it comes to finances, of course people typically don't date because of someone's economic status or wealth, right? But I feel like it plays a big role. Like you see in dramas, like that's always like a big sense of contention. Like if one family has more money than the other, or if one partner has more money than the other, usually that's like an area that people have conflict with.
That's true.
Yeah.
I wonder if it matters that he's the guy in the relationship.
Oh, okay.
And maybe family can look at it as, like, oh, maybe he's with us for the money, or with our daughter for the money. So I don't know. I feel like different cultures, or maybe even like most cultures, maybe like the man in the relationship would be expected to have more of a provider role, and maybe they might have some feelings about him being supported, by her family. I wonder if that might have come into their minds. I mean, I'm not sure, but it is something that I think happens in a lot of cultures.
Yeah. We can't say for sure whether that's what's happening here, but based on what OP said alone, I think, honestly, I think OP should keep the money. Keep the money. Although then it raises the question of, will the relationship stay the same if he keeps the money?
I really think that depends on how the family reacts to that decision.
Yeah. Because it seems like they can't legally contest it if they're pressuring him to personally kind of return it.
All right. Do you want to see what comments say?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. The grandmother gave it to you. The point of wills is that you get to leave your stuff to who you want, and it's your money, and you get to do what you want with it. The time for the money to have issues is when she was alive, and that was all drawn up. If she didn't share the will with them, she didn't want their input. They should honor her dying wish. If they don't like the will, take it up with her in the afterlife. If she gave it to charity, would they also be demanding the charity return it? Not the a-hole.
Oh, that's a good example.
Exactly. I think in a way you could even think of it as a scholarship.
Right.
Right. She asked him what his situation with his student loans was. She asked for details, and that will was drawn up after she heard those details. So in a way, it's like a scholarship.
Right. Because we know that she's giving it to him specifically because of their conversation about his loans. So it kind of is. I'm curious though, are they only going after him? At first, I thought it was because of the huge amount of money he got, right? But we know it's still less than what they received. Is it just because they think they can pressure him into giving it back? Because I'm not sure that they need it if they're already receiving such a big sum from grandma.
That is what this reply to the first comment said. They said, reply to the first comment. Also, they don't have study loans. They're upper middle class and not suffering in poverty. Splitting the money between the lot of them would up their inheritance by what, 5K each? I think grandma wanted to put you on equal footing with your girlfriend, debt-free. It's a nice gesture, and her family is being pretty nasty to ignore her last wishes, not the a-hole. So this comment did bring up that they are not suffering. So, this splitting of money won't, in reality, it wouldn't affect them too much.
That's so morally gross, though. To be in a position where you're debt-free, and for you, that little difference of even 5K, right, split between everyone, it makes very little difference for them in those situations. But yet they're willing to coerce OP into giving up what could be a life of being debt-free.
He did say it was life-changing money. All right. And let's see. Any updates? Nope, no updates. But overall, all the comments are saying that OP is not the a-hole. One comment says, not the a-hole, say this, quote, you have such a sweet grandma. I would hate to go against her wishes. Imagine her looking down from heaven and seeing me disrespect her like that, end quote. Seriously, grandma was a grown-up woman and she knew exactly what she was doing.
Grandma knew best.
Reply says 100% this. And I think that's our take too.
I agree. I completely agree with the comments. I'm on OP's side.
Go grandma. I'm on grandma's side.
Grandma knows best, honestly. So it's clear that not everyone is on the same page when it comes to finances or money. But the challenge is, what happens when you're not on the same page with someone that you're thinking of spending the rest of your life with? Now, this next story explores just that. Now, this one is from Our Relationships on Reddit. How do I, 25 male, talk to my girlfriend, 25 female, about how her spending makes me uncomfortable? I, 25 male, have been trying to start the financial conversation with my girlfriend, 25 female, of 4 years now. I'm not pushing the conversation on her all the time, but sometimes when she brings up marriage, or especially when she buys something really expensive, I get anxious, and that's when the conversation starts, maybe 3 times a year. For some background, I've been working after college for 2 years now, making about $100K a year. And she's in year 2 of medical school, racking up huge debts with no source of income, but still living at home with her parents. She has a major obsession with designer items, owns more than anyone I know, and whenever she can, will drop large amounts of money on unnecessary items because they're, quote, cute and hold value, and or she's had her eye on them for a long time. The last time we had this conversation, she cried because I asked her why she casually dropped $3,500 on clothes and a scarf when she originally planned to go gift shopping for her relatives. This time, she spent $1,000 on designer earmuffs, and FYI, we live in California. Prior to that, she bought a $2,500 handbag using birthday money and had 3 celebrations probably totaling $5,000. I just don't know if I can keep up with these expectations. For my birthday, I spent $300 on dinner. She justifies her spending by saying she doesn't go on any trips or buy anything else. And while I don't directly tell her what she's allowed to buy, I've let her know this kind of spending makes me uncomfortable, especially because she has no income and is in major debt. She makes me feel like a villain for bringing up my worries about her spending. She claims that I make her feel, 1, bad about her purchases, 2, make her feel like I'm going to break up with her because of her appreciation for designer, and 3, don't think she's worthy of me. And now I'm starting to go crazy wondering if I'm going about this all wrong. Firstly, I need an outsider perspective on if it's normal to feel this way. Secondly, I need advice on how to approach this conversation. And lastly, I would love any tips on how to work through this. I want to know your feedback first before we get into the updates.
I'm still stuck on that $1,000 pair of earmuffs.
In California.
In California. And, well, I'm from LA, right? And so I'm just wondering, why do you need $1,000 pair? Why do you even need earmuffs?
What is on those earmuffs for them to be $1,000?
For $1,000. Oh, good.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, okay. Well, OP asked a few questions, right? And one of the questions that stood out was, is it normal to feel this way?
Yeah.
Personally, I think it's very normal to feel that way. I mean, if my fiance spent $3,500 just out of nowhere on something he wasn't even planning to spend on, you know, I think OP said that she was out looking for gifts.
Yep.
And just suddenly dropped $3,500 on
random stuff.
Yeah, whatever. And I think I would be shocked. I mean, I feel bad when I drop like $200 at Sephora for skincare or something. I'm not sure. Is this a different lifestyle that I just don't understand? But OP makes, I think it was $100K a year. And his girlfriend does not have an income. Where is this money coming from?
So it's mentioned several times that, okay, for example, she said that one of the spending when she bought the $2,500 handbag, she used birthday money. Now it's in quotes, birthday money. So we know that she doesn't have an income and she still lives with her parents. So maybe she's being gifted this money, because if OP's not giving her this money and she's not working, I mean, can we assume that it's maybe from family?
But to be consistently gifted that, like, what is her family background?
Well, that's what's interesting. So I don't see kind of anything on the family yet. I believe there's an update. Let me see. One of the updates. So the money she spends comes from her parents and relatives from occasions. I've never understood birthday, Christmas money for a lot of people. But I think she somehow gets $4,000 to $6,000 in gift money from relatives.
Per occasion?
Wow.
Per holiday?
It looks like that. But even then, like, there are only so many, for example, holidays and occasions, right? In which you usually gift people.
Right.
That's like birthdays, Christmas, or is she consistently getting $4,000 to $6,000? Because she's dropping, we're seeing like over $5,000 a year on these things.
I mean, I'm wondering if it's a difference of wealth status, because if her family can afford to consistently gift, I'm guessing she's not the only one receiving it, right? So if her family consistently gifts this amount of money to people in the family for holidays, then they're probably pretty well off. And if it does not make a dent, or if, it does not affect her family's finances, I suppose it could be okay. I kind of need to know their level of wealth here and how much it actually affects them. Now, if they're gifting her money in hopes that it is, I don't know, supporting her schooling, her tuition, or her whatever expenses she may have, or giving it to her in hopes that she is saving it and just to help her get to a good start when she does decide to move out, I can see, that being a good reason to be gifting such a large amount of money. But if they are just happen to be super well off, and this, how much, $6,000 per occasion does not really affect them.
I wonder if there's an obligation for OP to also provide that level and spend maybe that level of extravagance. Because OP at the beginning, I think OP mentions that he feels pressured and anxious whenever she brings up marriage because of the spending. So they've been dating for 4 years, and it seems like they're both considering something, more long term. And I think that's where it's a little bit dicey, because look, if it's the girlfriend's money and she wants to spend this, I would normally say, okay, yeah, it's her money. Guess that's the way she wants to spend it. Fine. But if she's in a partnership, in a relationship with OP, and they want to take that critical next step, like they want to be, husband and wife. Usually, I think when it comes to that, I think there's a level of intimacy when it comes to finances, that you start to share finances or you start to share expenses and things like that. is she still going to be spending like this? And I think that's the kind of other pressure weighing on this whole
Well,
thing.
that's why I'm wondering what's her family background. So
Mm-hmm.
this story kind of reminds me of a couple on the show Love is Blind in
Mm-hmm.
this past season, where one couple, the woman was more wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
Her family was more well off, like significantly more well off than the guy. And this conversation was also brought up. He wasn't sure if he could provide the life that she is used to. And one of her questions to him, because she owned a home, so if they were to get married, then they were in talks that he would move into her house. And she asked him,
Oh.
well, the upkeep for this house is a lot. If something breaks, like if the water heater breaks down, it would cost about 10K or 20K to replace, something like that. It was 10 or 20K. And she asked if he would contribute to it. And he said yes. But with his income, I think that yes might have came out more of like an obligation to say yes.
Yeah.
But to, the average, even middle class, 10K or 20K on a water heater is a big dent in your finances.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if her family background is significantly more well off than what he can provide now, then that might actually put some pressure on him. I can imagine that to be a lot of pressure, and he might be concerned that that's what he's expected to do.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you talk about her family status, what that's like, because there is a second update. So OP says, to clarify, my girlfriend doesn't come from a mega wealthy family. She grew up in a, quote, high spending, high debt, keeping up with the neighbors. Don't worry about the future type of family.
Okay, that changes everything. Then scrap what I said earlier.
And OP says, the conflict has been that my wanting to talk about finances makes her worried I will break up with her because I don't believe she will become financially responsible and that our conflicting values mean I don't see her as worthy of me. I've acknowledged we were raised differently, and I said we need to normalize the financial discussion and eventually talk about compromises and expectations before we seriously talk about marriage.
OP sounds like a very level-headed person, like a very
Yeah.
level-headed partner. That's actually the kind of partner that you would look for to be financially responsible, to be comfortable with talking about money and talking about spending. It seems like he's comfortable talking about it, but it seems like she's not comfortable facing the reality of her spending.
Yeah. I think a lot of times when we think about relationships, we think about deal breakers, right? And usually there are some sort of, I don't know, habits or things that people do. But one that I don't think people talk enough about is financial habits. Because I can see how it can be frustrating. Like even if OP's making, a really good salary, 100K a year, that really doesn't justify the excessive lifestyle. And if you have a partner that has such a different way of spending than you, and there isn't a compromise, I feel like that's a really, really hard thing to get across and compromise on. And just, because when you have fights, how do you resolve that fight? It's like, I'm going to drop 5K. I don't want you to drop 5K. It's like, it's not about a personality difference. It's more like a very distinct monetary habit difference.
I'm starting to wonder if she's telling the truth about the source of the money then. Because OP provided that her family is high spending, high debt.
Yeah.
So where are they getting the money to be giving to her for holidays in that amount if they have high debt? So I'm wondering if her spending is actually coming from loans or credit card debt.
Oh.
And she's not willing to talk about her spending or to discuss about it, right? So how does OP know that she is actually getting the money from the sources that she's saying?
That's true.
What if it's actually debt? And she's a student, right?
Yep. Medical student with no income.
I have heard students using student loan debt to pay for lifestyle things. And you're not supposed to do that.
Wow.
But, that interest is going to rack up then if that's how you're handling your money.
You know what I'm even more worried about? It seems like OP's girlfriend is talking about wanting to take that next step, like wanting to be married, which is a big deal. But if she's not ready to have an honest and open conversation about finances, are they ready to get married to each other?
I don't think so. Not unless she has her finances in order and that she can be open about it.
Looking at some of the comments, people also had questions like we did. Where is she getting the money from if she has no income? OP replied and said, parents are funding her lifestyle and lots of gift money from relatives. I don't know how much she gets per year, but I won't probe on that. All I know is she makes 6 figures. Only she doesn't have normal expenses like rent, insurance, car payments, or even food.
Wait, so she does work?
No, she doesn't work, but because she's living with her parents and it seems like the parents are funding her current lifestyle, she basically doesn't pay rent, insurance, or car payments, or even food. So she has all of this money to spend. Here's the thing. Going back to OP's questions, because it seems like OP wants to make this work. My first instinct is I kind of want to say, like, I think you need to reevaluate if you guys are both ready for marriage, because the difference in values, especially when it comes to financial spending, is big. But if I go back to what OP is asking for is, how should they approach it? If it's normal to feel this way and any advice, I would say, I agree with Sandra. I think it's very normal to feel kind of complicated and anxious about this whole thing. Because when your partner is dropping so much money on something and she wouldn't be able to afford it independently or even with both their incomes, that's not really realistic to be dropping that much money on non-essential items. I think it's normal to feel that way. And based on this, I feel like OP still wants to kind of work it out. I'd say to be careful about attacking her about this and being like, oh, stop spending so much. You're taking that approach. And maybe trying to break it down as if it's a addiction, to be honest. Because it seems like this is less of a habit she's willing to fix and more like a habit she's now used to, a lifestyle she's now used to, whether it's because of her parents or all the gift money, whatever it is.
I think they, as a couple who are discussing the next steps in their relationship, I think they need to sit down, and it might be uncomfortable, but I think they do need to pull out all of their financial statements and together track their spending. Yeah. Individually and collectively. How much do you spend per month on, so and so? Because realistically, when you get married, you have more shared expenses and you want to figure out how much can you live on, how much can you cover, and how much money do you need to make monthly. So this is it really does lead into financial discussions. I mean, even if she's uncomfortable with it, I think it's something that is necessary for couples to talk about. Start small, start with tracking expenses. And then I would even plan to bring up debt. Is there existing debt and where is it at? What the interest is, what is owed, where you stand on it. Because the number one reason for divorce, but I don't want to jump there, but realistically is money. That is the reason. And not just for divorce, any other relationships among family, among friends. It's, it's a big reason for relationships to break.
Yeah. So one of the comments here also say her spending habits are unlikely to change. However, it's worth being honest that they're giving you concern about your future together.
I think all the comments sound like they are as concerned as we are for their future, for the future of the relationship.
Yeah, I'd say most of the comments are they're hovering between, this is a concerning aspect for OP's potential marriage with this person and future relationship. But some are also saying, if it's her money, let her spend it. But advising that OP and OP's girlfriend should have a very transparent conversation about expectations once they start, potentially living together or moving their relationship forward. Some, though, are also saying for OP to break up with OP's girlfriend because this is a value difference rather than a small
I
habit
think
difference.
a decision like that comes after a discussion, like a proper sit-down discussion, all cards on the table. What do you want our lifestyle to be? Can we afford that lifestyle? And if we can't, why? What are you expecting us to live like in the future? I think, because yes, it's her money. She can spend it how she wants. That's true. But it should not then affect OP's money. But if they do get married and they move in together and they share expenses together, then her inability to handle her money affects his money too.
No, I agree. I agree completely. I don't think I would jump the gun and say break up because I can feel that OP wants to work this out. So my advice is I'm with Sandra on this. I think they need to
talk about it.
Yeah. I hope for OP's sake that she's willing to take that step to open up with all of OP's efforts, because I think really that's the number one thing. You guys need to talk it out and be really honest about any debts and, future expectations for your life together.
It's going to be uncomfortable, definitely. It's not going to be a comfortable conversation because I think having all of her expenses laid out with timestamps and dates, I think that it could be embarrassing. It could, hurt her pride, but it's just something that they have to address if they do choose to move forward with their relationship. Yeah. And if they can't, then they would definitely have to decide the next step after that.
Oh, for sure.
Uncomfortable conversation.
So I feel like we discussed a lot about money today and how it impacts relationships. I mean, what do you think? We're very curious about your opinions on whether maybe OP in the first story was the a-hole or was OP's girlfriend's family the a-hole, and what your advice would be for OP in her second story. Let us know what you thought in the comments below.
Thanks for tuning into the podcast. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Spotify. We'll talk to you soon.
See you.
Bye.